I'm Maria Wolf, President of the World Affairs Council. I have a couple of acknowledgments and announcements to make before we introduce our speaker. Louder? Okay. Could the sound person turn up the sound? And I'll speak directly into the mic. Is that better? Okay, okay. First and foremost, I want to thank particularly the Muslim Educational Trust, and even more particularly our dear friends Wajdi Saeed and Rania Ayub. We often partner with the Muslim Educational Trust to bring programs to Portland, and it's always a great pleasure. It's a wonderful organization with creative and interesting people with a great community heart, and it's a privilege always to work with them. In addition to the Muslim Educational Trust, the partners for this event today are the Institute for Christian-Muslim Understanding and Lewis and Clark College. We'd also like to thank the sponsors, the Bilal Mosque at Grace Memorial Episcopal Church and the Grace Institute, Portland State University, and Ecumenical Ministries of Oregon. Also a special thanks to the Unitarian Church for hosting us here today, and for Bill Sinkford and Kate Lohr for all of their help in making this possible. Of course, we always have to take a couple of minutes for a commercial interlude. I wanted to tell you, since you're clearly a globally involved audience, about a couple of things upcoming that the World Affairs Council is sponsoring that may be of interest to you. First and foremost, Dr. Seema Samar from Afghanistan will be our closing speaker for the 2012 International Speaker Series. Actually, I had a bad moment when I haven't heard from her for about a week and a half, and when you're communicating with someone in a position like hers in Afghanistan, you always think the worst. But I got an email last night, and yes, she's coming. Dr. Samar, for those of you who are not familiar with her work, is a physician in Afghanistan, the first Hazara woman to graduate from medical school at Kabul University. She has been a leader in human rights efforts and work on women's and children issues all her life. She spent time in a refugee camp in Pakistan when she escaped some of the political turmoil in Afghanistan. She was the deputy president under the first Karzai administration, and then also the director, the first women's affairs minister for the nation of Afghanistan. She was ousted by religious conservatives, but now she heads the Afghan Human Rights Commission. She was nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize. She's a remarkable woman, and we are very lucky to have her with us. That's on April 27th, Friday evening. And actually, as attendees tonight, you qualify for a discounted ticket. They're $28, which is a savings of $20. You can go to the Ticketmaster website and put in the code SAMAR, S-A-M-A-R, if you would like to attend. Actually, as of Friday, Ticketmaster hadn't quite done its logistical stuff, and the link wasn't live, but I think it will be by now, and if it's not, just keep trying. So we'd love to see you there. Friday night, April 27th. A couple of other quick things. We have, for the citizen diplomats in the crowd, we have 10 visitors from Belarus who will be coming to Oregon for 22 days on a program focused on green tourism. We're looking for homestays in Portland for these people, and that will be from May 9th to May 30th. We'd love to have your bedroom. In partnership with the Department of State, the Council will also be hosting four high school students from Kosovo, the newest democracy in Europe. That's the first time that anything like this has been done. We're very lucky to get four of these youngsters in our state. They'll be with us for the whole year, and we're looking for homestays for either a semester or a year. So if that's of interest to you, please call us at the Council. Now, the reason you came today, to hear a really extraordinary speaker who's been not without controversy in his life, but has been such an extraordinary contributor to the intellectual dialogue about Islam and its place in the modern world. He was named, Dr. Tariq Ramadan was named by Time magazine as one of the 100 most important innovators of the 21st century. He really does occupy a unique place amongst Islamic thinkers. He represents a new generation of Islamic reformers. He calls on Western Muslims to embrace Western culture rather than reject it, and contends that it's possible to apply Islamic traditions and values within a more modern, pluralistic context. We'll hear more about that very soon. Dr. Ramadan is Professor of Contemporary Islamic Studies at Oxford University and also teaches at the Oxford Faculty of Theology. He's a visiting professor at the Faculty of Islamic Studies in Qatar and a senior research fellow in Kyoto, Japan. He's a director of the Research Institute of Islamic Legislation and Ethics in Doha, in Qatar, and also president of the European think tank, the European Muslim Network, which is based in Brussels. He holds an MA in philosophy and French literature and a PhD in Arabic and Islamic studies from the University of Geneva. He is active at academic and grassroots levels, lecturing extensively throughout the world on theology, ethics, social justice, ecology, and interfaith, as well as intercultural dialogue. Professor Ramadan is the author of many books, some of which are on sale in the lobby, and I did want to make sure that I mentioned to you that he will be available to sign those books after the presentation today. Some of the books that he's written include The Arab Awakening, Islam in the Middle East, The Quest for Meaning, Developing a Philosophy of Pluralism, What I Believe, and Radical Reform, Islamic Ethics, and Liberation. He certainly contributed significantly to the evolving role of Muslims in the 21st century. It's really a pleasure and an honor to welcome him here today. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Tariq Ramadan.
Thank you. Thank you so much for this invitation, and thank you for being here. Muslim Educational Trust was very instrumental in organizing this visit while I was here in the States for a lecture trip, 12 days around the country. So it's a pleasure. It's the first time I'm coming here, and it's a pleasure for me to come in this setting, talking about or starting from one of my books, The Quest for Meaning, and coming to the reality of what we are experiencing today in the West and what we have to do together. Can we? I need to speak louder. Is it possible to have it a bit louder, or? Oh, yes. So it's all about humility. Okay. I will. It's part of what I have to say anyway. Okay. So let me start because I really think that I will try to stick to 45 minutes and to give you time for questions and answer discussion that we can have afterward. So I will try my best. I always have problems with time. It's still my culture, Oriental culture, and the way we deal with time is not always as Swiss as it should be. The starting point is very much about this, and I want to bring to the fore 3 points as an introduction. When we are trying within our societies, and especially in the West, but it could be, yes, okay, it could be the reality in Muslim majority countries and around the world, is at the end of the day, when it comes to our shared values and responsibility, we come back to the very essence of life and what is the reality that we have to experience and try to come together. The starting point is really about this quest for meaning. We look at our life, we try to just come to the essential, beyond anything which has to do with our colors, our backgrounds, our origins, even our religions. At the end of the day, if we have chosen one religion, it's because we are responding to one simple question, which is the meaning of our life. And it's the answer to why I'm here, and what is the meaning of my presence in this world. And I think that sometimes, beyond focusing on our respective answers, we might have to come to our common questions. And this is one of them. And this is the starting of our spiritual, religious journey, philosophical journey, and at the end, this is what we are trying to get. An answer to this why. To get what? At the end of the day, what are we going to achieve when we are able, in one way or in another, to respond to this question? At the end of the day, when it comes to our mind, when it comes to our heart, when it comes even to our body, what we are trying to reach, what we are trying to get, is a sense of peace. Peace is when your mind has the answer to your question. You have intellectual peace. The peace of the heart is exactly the same, where your heart is getting out of its aspirations the answer. If you love and you are loved, you get something like the peace of peace in our heart, in your heart. And in which way you can get this is by just acknowledge the fact that your heart, your mind, your body are in needs. From the very beginning, our life, it's all about this. Just being quite clear and honest in the fact that we are facing, we are experiencing lack of answers sometimes, lack of love, lack of responses to our needs, and then what we are trying to reach with the meaning of life is this inner peace, this social peace, this family peace. So it's all about this. So the starting point is one question and a common hope that in our life we'll get that peace that we are looking for. And you know, at the beginning, when myself I was talking about Islam, very often I was asked, what is the very essence of the Islamic religion, of your religion, your tradition? Very often while I was talking about my religion, I was very often repeating justice. Justice, it's the main question, the main answer and the main objective with the worshipping the one God. And then after a while, when I was talking about this and being sometimes at the periphery of what I was saying and experiencing, I wrote the book in the footsteps of the Prophet, peace be upon him. And when I wrote this book, I said, in fact, I took the means for the end. In fact, justice is a means. The end is peace. And in Islam there is salam. Salam is peace. In fact, there will be no peace without justice, but we are not only trying to get justice, because sometimes there is something which is better than justice. It's to know what is justice, but you can go a step further by knowing the very essence of forgiveness, of sincerity, excellence. What we have also in the Islamic tradition, which is Inna Allah ya'muru bil 'adl wal ihsan. God commands justice and excellence. And excellence is the state where you know you are going beyond justice, you know what is justice, but you are ready to forgive. You are ready to love beyond the unjust treatment or statements. And this is not easy. Easy to say, and we are here sitting, say, yes, good. I like it. So that we all like it. Now to experience this, to experience the very essence of forgiveness, it's a very difficult spiritual experience. Very difficult, not easy at all. It's always easier when we love the people. This is why if we want to get at that level, we have to learn how to love the people. To be able to forgive. And to do it not when we are trying to forget, but knowing, acknowledging, facing what was done and being able to go beyond that. So it's not avoiding, this kind of lucidity, this kind of perception, understanding, but going beyond this. And this is something which is part of this quest for meaning that we are talking about when it comes to answering the question why and trying to get that inner peace. Now, there is something also which is important in our respective historical experiences. And as you were saying in the introduction, which is also something that have been working in 3 different fields, the very foundations of the Islamic tradition in Islamic legislation, and also the foundations of the sources of the Islamic law and jurisprudence. This is one field. The second is Muslims in Muslim majority countries, and the other field is Western Muslims, is Muslims living in the West. So these are the 3 fields on which I have been focusing my work for the last, let's say, 30 years. And many books are, the geography of my work is dealing with the three different areas. And one, I was have been working and writing books on the historical experience of Western Muslims in Europe, or in the States, or in Canada, or in Australia. There was something which was very important. Very often, because of the kind of discussion that we have trends and political trends and philosophical trends that are putting you in a situation where, by definition, you are going to be on the defensive. So they are perceiving you who, after 3-4 generations, are still immigrants. So I was born and raised in Switzerland, and still for some Swiss fellow citizens, I'm a Swiss with an immigrant background. And this says more about the way I'm perceived than the way that who I am. This perception that as Muslim you are still not completely an American, or not completely Canadian, or not completely a Swiss, says something about the perception, the self-perception of the country. And then, because the people are looking at you from this window and then saying, okay, you are an immigrant, Islam is not really a Swiss religion, it's not an American religion, you end up responding to what is said at the periphery of who you are. Saying, no, I'm nice, I'm kind, I'm peaceful. You end up transforming who you are to change the perception of who you are, to make it understandable. And this is normal, but on the long run, it's a problem. Because we are starting a dialogue at the periphery of who you are. You are talking about the self-perception and the perceptions. And this is not dialogue. This is responding to your fear, not sharing our responses. And we want to share our responses. We don't want only to appease you, or to please you, or to please myself, or to end up always responding to the same question: when are you going to integrate? You know this answer, and you know this question. So this is where we have to come to the center, and sometimes it's strange because it's a trap and it's a necessity. It's good, and this is what I keep on saying to Western Muslims. It could be a trap if you end up responding to the answer at the periphery, but what you get from outside should help you to come to the center. So you have to go to this journey, which is the spiritual journey, to go from the periphery to the center. You are asked at the periphery, you respond from the center. But to come back to the center is not easy. You have to reassess your own religion, your own principles, and because you are questioned, you are pushed to learn, and to learn deeper. And you have to do it with sincerity. You have to try to get it right. And it might be that this historical experience of being Western Muslim, as an experience of true pluralism, is helping you to get a better understanding of who you are. So question at the periphery should push you to get a better understanding of who you are at the center. Now, this is something which is important in the way we deal with some of the trends that we have in the populist trends that we have in the West today. It's not, for years I thought that it's only going to happen in Europe, and what I see now, I have been witnessing over the last 3 years in the United States of America, it's quite worrying with tea parties and neocon and portraying the fact that the only way to be true American is to describe who are the others. And mainly the others are these Muslims. We are now starting to integrate, because there is no other choice, even though at the grassroots level it's not done, the African-American parameter. Oh yes, now we can try to bring them with it. Even though you have heard that what was said about Barack Obama, the president, was not to accuse him or to target him by the fact that he's an African American. Now he's a hidden Arab and Muslims. And get it, what it means, that at the end we are always creating the other. So while we don't know how to deal with, at the highest level, we are integrating not really, but in the rhetoric, integrating the African-American parameter. Islam is not integrated, and Arab means Islam, and Islam means the other. So we have here to come to, we can end up talking about this and just trying to respond to the people saying, no, we are not the other, we are like you. But at the end, the answer should not come from the periphery. This is what I wanted to say. It should come from the center, from the very essence of who we are and what we want in the country. So it might be difficult because you have to decenter yourself from the attacks, not to be reactive, but to be active, assertive, and confident. And this is why the quest for meaning is important. You're not going to be assertive and confident if you don't come to the deep understanding of who you are and why you are here. So it's one, the answer to the question why, second in this piece, and then with this is well-being and contributing to the society wherever you are. So this is where it's important in our discussion when it comes to the quest for meaning in the light of what we are experiencing in the West, is really to come to these two things that are so important. At the end of the day, you might repeat that you don't have a problem with the American society or the Western societies, that you abide by the law, that you respect the country, that you want the best of the country. At the end of the day, you can repeat this, but what is going to be instrumental in changing mentalities is your own well-being, that you feel good here. Your own well-being will be the distinctive factor. When you feel good and you can say, this is home for me, and home is where I feel good. So it's not only a question of responding and to say it, it's just to show it, to experience it, and it's visible in the way you deal with your society. I feel good here because I'm responding to my own question, and I have people who are respecting me, and I make myself respected because I respect myself. So it's a question of mutual respect, but starting with myself. I'm not going to please you and disrespect my principles. I respect my principles, and I know, because this is the very human experience. If you see someone respecting her or his principles, you end up loving this person. Say, there is a sense of consistency. There is a sense of honesty. You might disagree, but at the end there is something which is, I like what you are trying to do. Because I'm myself, I'm trying to do this. I'm trying to be consistent with my own principles. And then when we are sharing these experiences of consistency, which is in itself an ideal, to be consistent is not easy. Every one of us here likes truth. And every one of us in this room knows what it means to lie. Or experiencing lying. Even to the people that we love. No one in this room can say, I never lied to my mother. This is why you are all visible and there is no visible angels in this room. But get it from here. The starting point of acknowledging this is our humble human being reality. And it's, this humility is the starting point of us living together, and I will come to this. Now, what I meant by this is two things that are important. Is first, how do we get this well-being wherever we are, living and feeling that we are at home, that you can look at the country and say, these are my people. And by the way, if you look at all the prophets and the messengers, and even the spiritual leaders, if you look at the history and the Hinduism, Buddhism, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, you will find that all the messengers and all the prophets, they were rejected, but their answer was not you against me. It was, you are rejecting me, but I'm still one of you. You are my people. And it's very important, this answer. I'm not going to define myself by you rejecting me. I'm going to define myself by the principles that are doing or making me one of you. We are sharing principles, even though if you don't understand this, even if your perception is putting me outside your reality, I'm still with it. And I will show you with my contribution that I am one that belongs to our common history. So I think that we need sometimes to come to this history of rejection to understand the very meaning of belonging. It's paradoxical, but it's very true. That perceptions can reject and spirituality can help you to belong. If you get the right answer to the first question and also to the principles that we are sharing. Having said that, now if we come to constructing all what I'm trying to say here as an introduction to our discussion is starting with the first question, the meaning of life. And I think that what is important here is that for all of us, for every one of us in this room and outside, because what is important, if you are here on Sunday afternoon, it can be a talk when I am preaching to the converts. The problem might not be you. The problem is how do we understand our responsibility to convey this message outside to our fellow citizens. It's really this, is not to live at the periphery of your life, but to come to the center and to say, okay, face your questions. That we should be able to say, we want to speak about death in a constructive way. Not as something which is losing life only, but if you think about your own death, that one day it's going to end. That when you love someone, you should know that one day it's going to end. That if you love your own life, one day it's going to end. You look at your kids, it's going to end. You look at your husband or your wife, it's going to end. And then you come back to the very meaning in a constructive way. It's not something which should be a catastrophe. It should be the humble question of life. And to be able, in a society where everything seems to be helping us to entertain ourselves, to forget. And this is the first thing that is important in the Islamic tradition. Islam, the second name of the Quran, which is the recitation, is ad-dhikr, which is remembrance. Don't forget. Don't forget. And this is something which is very difficult in our life, because everything is to nurture our dependency in order to forget. If you think more about the last iPad product or technology, you think less about the meaning of life. And this kind of dependency to progress, to productivity and technology, is something which is diverting your attention, your understanding of your own life. This is to live at the periphery. This is to be at the periphery. The meaning of life for us, the quest for meaning is, be careful. The first response to your question why is to try to get a state of independence. Not to be dependent and to avoid addiction. In fact, spirituality is about this. You will assess your level of spirituality to your level of dependency. To what are you dependent? That's a very deep question. And this is what we are sharing in our world now when we come to this, is try to work for your own autonomy. Intellectual autonomy, spiritual autonomy, and physical autonomy. That you are independent and you are not nurturing a kind of addiction. Any kind of addictions is from the Muslim tradition, but this is where I can see this in the Christian, in the Jewish, in all the spiritual tradition. Any kind of addiction is putting you far from the very essence of your relationship with God. And very close to your ego. The more you are independent, the more you are in the jail of your own ego. To free yourself from your ego is to get this kind of independence, which is the true meaning of freedom. Freedom is not to do what you want, because you are not sure that what you want is really what you want. This is the very essence of advertisement, is to make you feel that you need it. And say, yes, I love it. Are you sure? Are you sure? This is why you can see that in some of the inner cities in here in the United States, and even in the people who are saying we are rejecting the system are completely jailed by the system itself. They can wear all the dresses of the system, say, I don't like the system. And the system is smiling. And but we can laugh at them, but we are exactly the same, in a more sophisticated way. In a more sophisticated way. So the quest for meaning, and this real answer to the question is, how do you get this kind of spiritual autonomy? And the autonomy is beyond any kind of dependence. What will be the first field? And this is why in the book, The Quest for Meaning, I allocated one chapter on a very essential dimension. If we want to get at that level, you will find that we are all sharing this. When I was in India, I spent weeks and months visiting India, and I spent 3 weeks in Dar es Salaam with the Dalai Lama. I wanted to understand the way he was. And then I went to South America, and I spent time with priests and Christians working at the grassroots level for poor people and with poor people in order to get this kind of autonomy. Because poverty is not only poverty, a physical dimension, it's also a spiritual dimension. You can be very rich and very poor at the same time. Very rich physically and very poor spiritually. So this kind of dependence is, you can see it. And I was getting a sense, I was looking at him and questioning him about his own journey when it was very interesting for me, because it's a spirituality without God. While everything for me, the center is the oneness of God, the Tawheed, the oneness of God. But there is something which was completely similar. To free oneself in his own spiritual journey was very clear. You have to go through a process of educating yourself. No freedom without education. And this is where, for us, we need to come back to education as a central means for us. There is no other means but educating ourselves and educating our families, our society, to get this kind of independence. And we have to educate at every level. Spiritual education, intellectual education, physical education, because we know now that sometimes your dependency is coming from your body. The way you are behaving is, behaviorism is today teaching us that the way you deal with your body is creating a kind of dependence that is coming to your mind. You think it's your body, it's not. It's coming to your mind. And we know this, that your body is a means, a vehicle that can create a kind of dependency, intellectual and spiritual dependence. So the way you look, the way you deal with your own body, it's so important. So important. And the first dimension of education should be something which is very simple. And when I started teaching a long time ago, it's a very simple thing that you have to tell every single human being that you are meeting and yourself. It's take care of yourself. Is the starting point of education. How do you care about yourself? Are you in a process that you are educating yourself at all this level? Take care of yourself. Take care of your heart. Take care of your mind. Take care of your body. It's the starting point of the educational process. And then we need to get to the substance of what we are teaching. And you can see that in the Buddhist tradition as well as in the Islamic tradition, it's all about you have to educate yourself to love. You have to educate yourself to look. The first attitude that we get in the Quran, for the first revelation that came to the Prophet, peace be upon him, were just for him to convert his heart, to tell him, look at the world with new eyes. And you have a very important verse in the Quran saying, إِنَّهَا لَا تَعْمَى الْأَبْصَارُ وَلَكِنْ تَعْمَى الْقُلُوبَ الَّتِي فِي الصُّدُورِ. It's not your eyes that are becoming blind, it's your heart in your inner life, it's your inner personal dimension. The heart is becoming blind. Why? Because spirit, the meaning of life, the fact that you are with God should help you to look at the world in another way. To look at the world not as if you are facing elements, but signs of His presence. That all this has a meaning. To say God means my life has a meaning. This is what we are saying, but you have to educate yourself. You have to go beyond nature to get the spiritual dimension. So education is critical. And we have to ask ourselves, what do we do with our own education? No one is in the room, whatever is your age. You will never end your personal education. Till the last minute of your life, you are still a student. Still. And you have to take it as it is. This is the humility on our path, is what can I get? Which kind of knowledge I can get from my personal journey towards my own death and my encounter with the very meaning of my life. It could be God, if I believe in God, and it could be the end of a cycle, if I think that I will come back. And I once again repeat for every one of us that in the Buddhist tradition, to come back is not good news. If you understand what I mean. Because some are romanticizing the whole process. I'm coming back, okay. That's not it. This is fashion. This is not Buddhism. This is not the real, demanding teaching of the Buddhist tradition, which is how do you free yourself from your ego? How do you free yourself from this suffering that is coming with your desire? And this is, you have to educate yourself. It's a process which is deep, difficult, demanding. So having said this education is important, and we have in our societies, and this is where being a Western Muslim, or being a Christian, a Western Christian, or a Western Jew, or whatever, we have a common to come together and say, what do we want to teach, and what is essential in our education? The meaning of life, and not only the know-how, not only to be the first at school, but to get the right understanding, not to be an efficient citizen to get, power and to get money, is an efficient citizen to serve your fellow human beings. It's much more about serving. So this is the meaning of our education. And this is why in the book, The Quest for Meaning, when I forgot. Okay, better like this. When I was writing about this chapter on education, I was saying, if you look at our schools and our universities, we need to reconcile our students and ourselves with 4 disciplines. And the first one, because this is where you get a sense of, put yourself in history. It's important because you understand that what you are facing is not new. It's something which happened, many things happened before when it comes to wars, when it comes to questioning, when it comes to philosophy, the old philosophical question and what happened in our history, and to understand where you are. If you want to feel good in a society, to get the well-being, you should know something about the past. You should know the history, you should know the memories, what is structuring the collective psychology. So this is one we need to teach more history. Our young students don't get enough memory of the past. History is so important. And when you are self or ignorant of your own history, this is where you don't know really who you are. And this is why some populists are using this. Because you don't know who you are scared of who you are not. So we are nurturing this fear of the other because we don't know who you are. So one of the main problems that I have with some of my fellow citizens in the West is not that they don't know about Islam, it's that they don't know about themselves. They don't know about their history. They don't know where they are coming from. Because the sense of confidence is coming from, I know, I'm coming, this is my history. My history is not to make me arrogant, it's to put me in a humble way within a history, within memories. In the concert of memories, I find my place. We need to teach history. We need to teach philosophy again. This is what I was saying. The quest for meaning is why. Philosophy, it's about why. And in a humble way to understand that many of the questions that we have in the religious traditions are already also in the philosophical tradition, and that what we get from Socrates, Aristotle, and the Greek philosophers, or the Jewish philosophers, or the Christian philosophers, the Muslim philosophers, let us come to these questions and teach them again. And not only, computering, and all this is good. Science is good, but not one and forgetting the others. So we need to teach philosophy. We also need to teach history of religions. And this is critical. If we are serious about freedom and choice, if you say to your kids, you are free to decide, give me the knowledge to decide. Because there is something which doesn't match. Ignorance and freedom don't go together. You are by definition in jail if you are ignorant, because ignorance is jail in itself. You can't decide. So when you are telling me decide, and I don't know, I'm going to decide for what can attract my emotions and say, oh, you were free to decide, but in fact I was not, because I had no choice. Choice is coming with knowledge. And the last, and it's quite strange for many of my fellow Muslims, they were surprised that I put this as something which is essential, and some of you might be surprised as well, but the fourth discipline that we have to teach is arts and imagination. Why? Because this is so important. It's the way you deal with your imagination and the way you deal with your creativity. Any society, your history, your culture, you can get it out of this creative modes and the creativity, arts, the meaning that you have, imagination. We have to celebrate this. We have to make it loved by our kids and ourselves. It's not entertainment only. I'm speaking about arts, I'm speaking about expression, I'm speaking about literature, I'm speaking about painting, I'm speaking about music, saying to the Muslims, it's lawful. Because you have some trends among Muslims saying, you can't hear music. And say, okay, that's your decision, don't listen to music if you don't want to listen to music, but many, and the majority of the Muslim trends now are saying, there is nothing wrong with this. And this is something which is so important, to have this kind of creativity and to celebrate this as something which is part of our life. 4 disciplines that are helping us to come to this. And if you are serious about them, this is where we can get this pluralism that we are talking about. Only by touching deep things is poetry, for example. Poetry. Many people say, okay, you did a master in French literature? Yes, and on 2 poets, Baudelaire and Rimbaud. This was so instrumental in my understanding of who I am. Because they were talking to me, they were talking their personal experience. They didn't get the same answer, but we had the same questions. And they put them in words that were beautiful. And beauty is the starting point of spirituality. Inna Allahu Jamil yuhibbul Jamal. God is beautiful and He likes beauty. And if you don't like beauty, education is needed. And I speak about deep beauty. Okay, I'm not going to that discussion. Anyway, the third field that I'm also tackling, and it's important for us, and you understand what I'm trying to do now. I'm trying to come to the center. And when I'm talking here about Western Muslims, this is where I am. I don't want to react and say, okay, are you integrated, respecting the law? Of course, this is done, but first we come to this. And when we get this understanding that at that in the center, in the essence of our question. We are talking to one another, we are understanding one another. This is where we can have the true pluralism we are talking about. So now I'm at the center and asking this question about education. And there is something which is coming out of this education, which is freedom. And as I was telling you, we have to be very cautious with superficial freedom and deep freedom when it comes to free our ego, free our being, and to be able to decide for ourselves. And this is the spiritual journey. Spirituality is based on this quest for freedom. Even when we say, for example, in Islam, we say one God. There is only one God, and you worship only one God, is to free yourself from all the other gods that you can have. Loving money, loving the way you look, all these you should go, loving power. Free yourself from this. As in the Buddhist tradition, in the Christian tradition, everything which is said in the Christian tradition about God is love is telling you, be careful. There is one love and there is many other loves that you have to free yourself from to come to loving Him. And the first one is the way you love yourself, which is natural and sometimes dangerous, depending how you love yourself. So we are not asking anyone, no spiritual teaching is telling you don't love yourself, but you have to check the quality of that love, the essence, the dimension. Where do you put the other in this love? So this is coming out of education to get what? To get the true freedom we are talking about. And this freedom cannot come without something which apparently is opposite to it, contrary to what we think is freedom. Is there is no freedom without discipline. And this is, I'm using in our life, I'm using the example of the pianist. If you have, when you start playing or trying to get anything when it's come to any instrument, the starting point is always difficult because you need to get the technique. And the technique you get it out of studying, and it's a discipline. And at one point you are so good at mastering the technique that when you play it's as if you don't have a technique. So the technique disappears when you master the technique. This is exactly the spiritual life. You need the foundation, you need the technique, you need to be disciplined, and at one point you will get the freedom to live your life because you are disciplined. This is why in all the traditions, for example, something which is simple, you will find no spiritual tradition without something which is apparently strange, but it's part of your spiritual journey, and it's not dealing with your mind, it's not dealing with your heart, it's dealing with your body. All the spiritual traditions at one point are asking you, fast. Don't eat. Why? It's natural to eat. When you are mastering, controlling your body, you are freeing your spirit. There is something which is freed from this discipline. So the way the pianist is mastering the technique, you as a spiritual being, you have to master your body. كتب عليكم الصيام كما كتب على الذين من قبلكم. You are commanded to fast as it was recommended to every tradition before you, which is the common experience. I hope that sometimes you are fasting. With or without God, by the way. It's always good. In the Buddhist tradition they fast, and even the philosophy, some medical doctors are saying, fast. It's always good, and especially in a society where we are facing so much diseases that are coming from too much consumption. So it's a resistance. To fast is to resist and to free ourselves. So it's coming from the true experience of freedom that we have to ask here. And having said that, from this center, there are things that are coming from our understanding. So look at what I'm trying to do here. I hope that you are following me in this journey, which is the spiritual journey within the quest for meaning, based on something which is coming to the essence. And at the same time, I am at the center of myself, at the center maybe of your respective tradition, and this is where pluralism is. We find at the center the true pluralism, because we all share these values. We understand all each other. So we can speak at the periphery, but we are not going to get it. It's only if we come at the center, and we are serious about it. We have to be serious with our respective traditions. It's not because it's when I'm consistent with my tradition that I'm opening windows, opening doors where you are most welcome to enter. And you should do the same. Every one of us should talk from that dimension, at the center, in the essence. And then this is what we find as well. I spoke about education, I spoke about freedom and the spiritual journey, and we find something which is essential here, that we are all called to show solidarity. And solidarity is you are not on your own. The way you respect yourself is the way you are going to serve the others, the people around you. And the way you look at yourself should be perceived. And this is why, for example, in our tradition, you will see this was the attitude of Jesus in the Christian tradition. It's very important that he was so close to the poor people. In all the tradition, we have exactly the same. In Islam, close to the first mosque of the Prophet, the poor were there. It's as if to come to pray the one, you should be close to the last. You should be close to the last. Because the way you are with them will give a quality to the way you are with him. And he was asking, Allahumma nas'aluka hubb al-masakin. God, we are asking you to love the poor people, not only to serve them, to love them. Help us to love them, which is exactly what we had in Christianity and exactly what we had in all the history of Moses. At the end of the day, it's what we have to do. You have to be with the oppressed and you have to be with the poor people. Why? Because when you are with the lost, when you are with the poor, when you are with the oppressed, the very meaning of life is coming back to you. The meaning is not when you are rich and forget it. The meaning is sometimes when you are poor and remembering. Because poverty is pushing you to come to the essence. And we have to go through this. We have to go. This is why sometimes we don't eat. Fasting is also for this experience that it's so important. So solidarity, it's important in our life. And solidarity should not be only something which is a kind of a charity that we serve you, you are poor, but it's something that you can find also, and I liked when I was in a conference on peace with the Dalai Lama. At one point, he was talking about China. And he's always smiling, always open, but at one point he stopped and he said, we should love, we should serve, but there is justice and we have to respect justice. And our solidarity is not to let the people live their life the way they are. If there is poverty, if there is oppression, we should connect solidarity with justice as means to give back dignity to people. وَلَقَدْ كَرَّمْنَا بَنِي آدَمَ. We gave dignity to human beings. So dignity is not, you are poor, I serve you and I forget you. No, you are poor, I serve you and I help you in anything which has to do with justice in this life. And the first justice is to give you enough to eat, because if you don't have enough to eat, it's the basic right as human being that is not respected. It's unjust by definition. Poverty is unjust by definition. And we have to connect our solidarity with justice. This is why, for example, in the Islamic tradition, and this is something that we also can find in so many other traditions, is a zakat that we have to pay 2.5% of what we have as our money to the poor. Why? Because this is the right of the poor. It's a question of justice. It's not a question only of charity. Charity is good if and only if you don't forget justice. And this is why, when I like this. When I was in South America, when I was in Brazil with their camera, I took some student with me and we spent time with him. And the way he was reading the Bible, the way he was saying, it's all about love, but never forget justice. Stand up for the dignity of human being. Your justice is your right. This justice is your right. I will help you, but first help yourself by standing up and saying, I'm not going to give up on my rights. That's it. This is human dignity. So this is where we need this. We need this message as people in the United States of America, and we have to have it, to get it right from the very beginning. So this is why I'm saying to Western Muslims, it's not only the question for me to feel good at home, it's also to understand that anyone in this society who doesn't feel good in this society, is oppressed for any reason, is one of mine. I'm on his side. So this is why we should show respect, and we should struggle for the dignity of all. Not only Muslims for Muslims and Christians for Christians. This has to be stopped. So interfaith dialogue is good, but we have to add to interfaith dialogue common and shared struggle for justice here in this society. Let us come as Americans, Jewish American, Christian American, a Muslim American, atheist, agnostic, Hindu, Buddhist, all together in the name of justice and solidarity. We are not going to accept anything which is wrong in this society, but not only talk about our people. Our people, I mean the religious side of it, but our people in the society to come together. And this is something which is the well-being, to feel that this is your country. If you feel that this is your country, anything which has to do with injustice in this country should be your own understanding, the deep understanding of who you are and what you are trying to get in this society. So I still have, I think, 5 minutes. Am I right? Is it right, or 45 minutes, or I'm adding a bit? Okay, this is good. So, okay, quite quickly here. So this is something that we have to come together, and as citizens, as human beings, what is expected from us, whatever is our philosophical background and our religion, and it's the same for the Western Muslims and the American Muslims, is to be the agents of good and peace in this society. And this is where our spirituality should be an active, visible spirituality in the way we are dealing with our society. And as I was saying, the three dimensions that I was mentioning here when it comes to spirituality is how do we answer the questions. So we need to get a kind of intellectual spirituality, which means you have your questions and you try to get the answers. So to get that intellectual peace. The needs is exactly the same. The needs that you have in anything which has to do with your body, your being in this society. This is also something which is the spiritual, the physical dimension of our spiritual peace. It's very important. We need to talk. We need to face it. It's not because we are religious people, but we have to avoid speaking about physical needs. We should be able to speak about everything. When it comes to eating, when it comes to sexuality, why is it that people that are in the religious field, they don't speak about this? Why? Sexuality is part of... If I'm not sexually at peace, are you telling me that I can be very spiritual, that everything is going... Okay, you can dream about it. At the end of the day, we have to talk about this. We have to talk about our kids are facing something which is everywhere. They are pushed to have a kind of this physical attraction is everything when it comes to sexuality. No, we have to reconnect sexuality with love. We have to be very, very deep in this. What does it mean to love? Not the physical attraction, not the superficial attraction, but the deep love from which and with which we accept and we celebrate sexuality as part of our spiritual journey. We are celebrating it. Anyone who is saying, oh, no, don't speak about this. I'm sorry, you don't speak about this, but it's everywhere. So you want to call to a journey and you are blind to what the people are experiencing. We need to talk about sensitive issues like this that are part of our common challenges when it comes to this. And if you are a father or you are a mother in this society, you know what I'm talking about. You know how much it's difficult to come to this. And when you are in the internet culture, what it's coming from internet. When we are silent, if we are silent, the computer is talking. The computer is speaking. He's sending messages. And you can just make, oh, I haven't seen anything. So, okay, you know what I mean. My conclusion here is, with all this, what it's important It's to start the discussion from here and to come together and to be able to speak about our common ethical values, ethics that we are sharing. And you can see that with all what I'm saying here, we have common values. And what I call universal value, this is what I'm explaining in the first chapter of the book, that the universal values are but shared values. It's like a mountain, that we have many roots, and at the end, at the summit, at the top, we'll find the common values that we are all sharing. Let us, okay, you have your route, I have my route, but at the end, where are we headed? We are going to the same direction. Some are saying it's not a mountain, it's the desert. That's fine. At the end of the day, we will find ourselves somewhere together. And we have to share, we have shared values that we have to celebrate when it comes to ourselves, what I was saying when I was talking about freedom, when I was talking about education, in our family. I think it's critical, and if the Muslims and the Western Muslims want to be an added value in the society, is not only to talk about the family as something which is an ideal, it's really to talk about the family as a very important social experience. Where do you put your family in the whole process? What does it mean to be a father? What does it mean to be a mother? What does it mean to be a son and a daughter? What does it mean to belong to a family? When what we have in some society, because of industrialization, some fathers and some mothers are dying alone. What a shame. Which kind of education have we given to our kids when they are forgetting the father and the mother? And when it comes to the whole discussion about women, we have a very big challenge as Muslims, with, by the way, every one of us. In all the religious traditions, women is a central discussion. But as I am saying this to Muslims, we talk about women in Islam, and I think that one of the main problems that we have about women in Islam is men. And the first to clap is a woman. Anyway. But I would say it's the same in the Christian tradition, in the Jewish tradition, that if we are serious about this topic, we have to come not men against women, but how do we deal with this today? Because the old traditional roles are lost if you are not serious about reconnecting. So you see, the quest for meaning and this philosophy of pluralism is coming from within, from the center. And the conclusion is this: in interfaith dialogue, I think that the starting point of what I have been talking about, and this is why I told you at the beginning of my talk, I will come back to humility. Humility is a state of heart, a state of mind, a state of being when you are clear that you don't get it all, that you have to learn from people. So anything which has to do with interfaith dialogue should be not that I'm convincing that I'm right, because I think that I'm right, you think that you are right, but at the end, what from where you are, you can learn. I can learn from you, you can teach me. So what I can get, humility is this: I'm open to learn from you, and I will try my best to give you something out of it. So this is our mutual contribution. Humility is the starting point of dialogue. Intellectual humility, but also anything which has to do with, what I call, very often in the Islamic tradition, we speak about physical modesty, is the way you dress. I think we have also to talk about intellectual modesty, the way you think, the way you are not, to be assertive with your values is not in contradiction with being humble with your answers, your own answers. So I think that this is an important point. At the same time, we have to share something which is important, and these are three things that I want to add. It's to be ambitious. Our world today needs reform, needs changes. We have to be active, we have to be committed, we have to engage, we have to make it something which is part of our life. And I like what John Paul II was saying. If one person is not suffering, or there is less suffering for one person in this world, the world is better. It's not a question of counting, it's a question of being committed. And we need to come with ambition. We have to be humble and ambitious at the same time. And this is what we have in the Islamic tradition, la hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. There is no power and no strength, only in God. So if He wants, everything is possible. If you don't want, if it's possible, everything is possible. So we have to be ambitious. And ambitious is not to count how many things we have done, is to do what we can do. لا يكلف الله نفسا إلا وسعها. God doesn't ask you to do more than what you can do, but what you can do, you have to do. So, it's demanding. Very often we say this, oh, it's good, I should not do more than what I can do, but are you sure that you are doing what you can do? So you have to be in this committed ambition. And two things that I want to say. The third one is, and really, I want you to consider this. It's to be courageous. Humble, ambitious, and courageous. Courageous means to speak out. Courageous is to face the unjust voices. The courageous means sometimes you should be silent when the people are too much emotional and hysterical in the way they are, but you need to be vocal. We need, for example, to make it clear that we are not going to accept any kind of hierarchy between racism in this country. To be against the black people, unacceptable. To be anti-Semite, unacceptable. To be Islamophobic, unacceptable. Whatever is your take, there is no hierarchy in racism. Racism is unacceptable. And we have to be courageous to say it, and not only to say it, but to show that we are committed, that we are going to struggle with the law, with our institutions, that we are not going to accept anything. And it's also the way that we are dealing with our own citizens, because we have second-class citizenship in this country. And you know this, that some people are treated in a way which is not acceptable. And add to this, the way that sometimes immigrants are treated at our borders, it's unacceptable. So we have to be courageous, and not to be, religious people or people with great philosophy, it's peace and love. But when it comes to, and what about being vocal? What about, because you presented me as controversial. I don't have any problem to be controversial if my voice is to say to the government, I don't agree with you going to Iraq. I don't. And if I have to be controversial because I tell you no to any kind of exploitation outside, I'm ready to be controversial. But not to be controversial because I say what you want me to say. That's not to be a good person. That it could be someone who is betraying his principle. I don't want to betray my... No, it's a call for more courage. It's a call for more courage that we have to show in our respective struggle. So humility, ambition, courage, and the last thing it's an important word that we are all sharing. At the end of the day, all what I have been doing now, if you go behind the scene and try to understand the consistent reference for me, there is something which is the way I want to love God is the way I want to love human beings. And to serve the human beings is the way I want to serve Him. And there is something which is behind my courage, or the call for courage, behind the call for humility, and behind the call for, with humility, it's ambition and being active. There is something that we have to do, is really to make it visible, that at the end of the day, our actions are all out of love, that we are loving the people, that we are loving God, it's all this. And I think it's serious. For 25 years, up to now, I'm always saying to my students at the end of every single lesson, don't forget to tell the people you love that you love them. Why? Because this is essential. At the end of the day, do whatever you want with your love, but if you don't know how to love your father, your mother, your kids, your society, the people, the human being, if you don't love the poor, do whatever you want. At the end, these are words without substance. And we need to celebrate substance, and you will find the words. Inshallah. Thank you.
very I'll shout. First, thank you very much to Dr. Tariq Ramadan, really an extraordinary presentation.
You have to do the same. You have to, bro. You can come here. Come. You want to come here?
Okay, let's share. Small disadvantage because this way he can see the questions. But really a wonderful presentation. Thank you very much for a lot of food for thought. To begin with, the writings of the Quran and the Bible posit a three-tiered universe: earth in the middle, heaven above, and hell below. Is it time for Christians and Muslims to do away with this pre-scientific worldview and simply concentrate on the opportunities to live moral lives in the here and now?
Look, I think that we can, from where we are now, start a kind of scientific critique of the revelations and end up talking about what is scientific and what is not. And I think that at our level, this is not going to help us a lot. Because at the end of the day, when you believe in, that the Quran is the very revelation of God, the very word of God, whatever you are going to try to find with science is not going to undermine this very essence of the belief. It's the same for the Christian tradition, the same for the Jewish tradition. I don't think that we have to start with this scientific approach, but what we have to do is really, as it is said here, concentrate on the opportunities to live moral lives in the here and now. This, I think, is what we should do. It's really to not to go as far as questioning the legitimacy of what you believe, but what are you doing with your belief? What are the consequences, the visible consequences of what you believe in your life? And I think that this is what I was trying to do today. This is where we can come together. Now, I really don't like this kind of interfaith dialogue that we had, and I was quite critical with some Muslim scholars. They take the Bible and say, look, what is your own book, and they are interpreting the text for the Christians. And you have some Christians are doing the same with the Quran. They take a verse, say, that's not science. This is not the way you are going to convince me that I'm wrong by taking one verse, and no, it's a science. So we have a global message. We have the verse has to be interpreted and understood in a specific context within the overall message. Let the Christians talk about Christianity. It doesn't mean that you don't have. I read the Bible, but my point is not to use the Bible against the interpretation. It's to listen to what the Christians have to say on the book and the Muslims have to say on the book, and we come with this understanding. Tell me what you think about your book, and we start this discussion here. Now, the legitimacy or the scientific arguments about what you believe is not going to help us in our living together.
How important is the Israel-Palestine problem to world peace? Do you think it's resolvable?
Wow. So it's another lecture now. How much time do I have for that one? Look, I think that, let me say three things on this. I think it's true that the Israeli-Palestinian conflict has an impact on our living together, and even in Western countries, very often it makes it difficult between Muslims and Jews, and sometimes with Christians, to talk about this very issue. And this is why I took a position of principle on this. First, I think that we should just say, as a starting point of anything which has to do with justice with Palestine and Israel, that we should acknowledge the fact that Jews, Christians and Muslims should have the equal access to the holy places there. This is not disputable. They should have equal access and equal rights. This is the starting point, and this is the religious answer to the religious issue itself. Now, the second step is to say this is not a religious conflict. It's a political conflict. So our religious response is this one. The second is the political dimension of it is, here we are dealing with something which is political, and we should completely avoid making it and transforming it into something which is Muslims against Jews. Because at the end of the day, if you know the history, you know that many Palestinians are Christians, and they are suffering the same. So we have here to come with the political view, which is, it's a question of two states or one common state. It's a question of acknowledging the fact that Palestinians have rights, and for me it's not even, you know, it's clear that they are oppressed in the whole experience. Having said this, I don't want it to transform this into a religious conflict and being obsessed with, you know, the fact that that we are confusing the different dimensions. When I'm critical towards the state of Israel as to the way they are dealing with the minorities, I'm not at all criticizing Judaism. And I'd say it's different to be anti-Semite. It's unacceptable. Being critical of a state is a necessity. I'm myself very, very critical towards Saudi Arabia. I'm not an Islamophobe, but that? Difficult. But I'm very critical. The state is not respecting the basic human rights of people, so I'm criticizing it the way I'm criticizing every single country government when it's wrong. This is what I did with the American government in Iraq, for example. So I think that we have to come with a political discourse here, and as citizens we should be free to come with our views and to say that at the end, my hope is really that we have, beyond two states, is coming together and the people can love each other. It's going to be difficult and it will take time, but to live together and to respect each other. And the starting point is that we need to have the acknowledgement that the Palestinians today are not treated the way they should be treated. That's my position, and I would push the American administration. If I was an American, I would carry on talking to my government saying you should not be unilaterally supporting one side. It's not going to help you in the future. This position is a suicide on the long term. It could help you now, it's not going to work in the coming years. This is my position, but it's a political decision and it's a political stand, and I want. By the way, I was told, if you want to be welcome in this country, stop talking about it. I will never stop talking about it. I will never, no, I'm talking about this one as much as I'm talking about, you know, the Tibetans that are being oppressed. I will never stop talking about unjust treatment, because this is the dignity of my life and the dignity of every one of us, and this is why we have to come to be courageous together, not to be silent.
This question is from a friend at the Bilal Mosque. How do you recommend we engage with those among us who are not willing to participate in a dialogue with the West?
Yes, that's another good question, which is when I was in all this experience talking about pluralism, very often as I was presenting it is how do we deal with people from other faiths. But we all know, all the Christians that are here, all the Jews that are here, and all the Muslims that are here, even all the atheists that are here, it's the most difficult thing is very often to speak with your own people within the religious community. And there is something which is very difficult, that some are even not here, some Muslims are not here, some Christians are not here, because they think that is useless. What are you trying to do? Either you convert them, either you forget about them. So, yes, and this was, I know that some for them, a dialogue is a way to convert, it's a way to convince, it's not a way to share and to learn, which is the other way around. So I would say that here, first, my starting point within the community is to acknowledge the fact that we have an accepted diversity. So that among Muslims, for example, is to say, I know that we have, by the way, I don't like this binary vision, the good and the bad Muslims. No, we have many trends. We have literalist, traditionalist, reformist, rationalist, Sufi. We acknowledge this, and if you think that interfaith dialogue is not a necessity, that's fine, that's your opinion. Now, it's not because your opinion that I'm not going to try to challenge your views, so in a constructive way. Is really based on the Quran, based on the prophetic tradition, just to challenge the people by saying, look, it was always there. In the Islamic tradition, it started with the messenger, peace be upon him, himself, to talk to Christians, to talk to Jews, to protect the Jews. Of course, there were wars, but this dialogue was something which is essential. You can't survive. We made you tribes and nations in order to know each other. How are you going to know each other if you don't dialogue, if you don't talk, if you don't listen? You have to come through this experience. So it's respecting your views, but challenging them constructively, and we need this intra-community dialogue, which is important. And by the way, responding to this, I would say that any one of us who is involved in interfaith dialogue, be very careful. I wrote this in Western Muslims and the Future of Islam, one chapter, interfaith dialogue. What I was saying is, and talking about the sensitive verses when it comes, because we have in the Quran sensitive verses about Christianity, about Judaism, and we have to tackle this. What does it mean really? What do these verses mean in our tradition, in the overall message? And there is something that, one of the conditions that I was put to interfaith dialogue, having experienced this for 25 years, is we have to be careful not to have interfaith dialogue between people who don't need interfaith dialogue. Because they know each other. It's an idealized world, you know, you are a Christian, and a rabbi, an imam, that's fine. And we are not connected to our community. So any one of us who is coming into a circle which is constructive and good should go back to her or his community to exchange, to spread around the message that this is possible and it's effective. We should not have, you know, interfaith dialogue as something which is, the circles of the specialized people who are not connected to their community, and then within the community to go for this intra-community dialogue, which is not easy but a necessity.
Your 4 pillars of education, history, philosophy, history, religion, the arts, are subjects that are often the first to be eliminated when resources are scarce, which they seem to always be these days. What can be done about this?
Yes, this is what is happening in our school systems around the world. The first that we are removing are philosophy, arts. Even arts is even not there very often now. We have something which is very marginal in the way we are teaching. So I would say that there are 2 things that are still important for us, and this is why it's important for us to be able to be vocal outside this room, is really to be committed parents and committed people within the society, is to be connected to the schools. And I would say for Western Muslims, don't think that the only answer to what is happening in the state school systems is to organize only or to have your private schools that are disconnected. You can have your private school if and only if you are connecting them to the national dynamic. So to be connected with what is happening in the country. So, and then to come with what should be taught. And if it's not within the schools, if it's not within the curriculum, we need to have something which is extra things that are outside our school. In our religious communities, we can do this. We can add what is missing in the school system, even though I think that we have to struggle as teachers, as parents, as students to have this disciplines taught in one way or in another. But it means that we have to be much more involved in the discussions about education in our societies. We are too much passive. We are too much listening or following what is imposed onto us as to the disciplines that should be taught to be efficient. But it's also a vicious circle, because very often we ourselves as parents, we think about our kids, say, oh, his or her future, he should do this, he should do that. What are you going to do with philosophy? This is what I heard when I started philosophy. I said, philosophy? What are you going to do with this? So yes, because we want efficiency, we think about work, we think about job, we think about salary, and arts is exactly the same. I think that we have to be much more involved in this discussion and try to find alternative ways in our religious or respective religious communities.
For the last question, what do you believe is the greatest challenge facing the American Muslim community today, and what is one tangible thing every Muslim can do to help address this challenge?
There are many challenges, difficult to choose, but I would say that there is one challenge which has many consequences, and I would say that one of the main challenges is this self-segregation, is to be on the defensive and to be protective, only protective, to think that we're going to protect our religion by being on the defensive among ourselves, not participating, not being visible, not being sharing our values. And the consequences of this is, it seems that you have a sense of unity against, because we are protected. But the protective mode is very, very problematic in the way it shapes your mind, in the way you deal with you can't feel good in a society where you are always in the protective mode. You are feeling alien, and you are buying the discourse. This is exactly what the neocon and the Tea Partisan people, the populists, they want exactly this. They want you to be self-segregated. And by spreading around this atmosphere, they push you to be like this, and you confirm it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. They say it, and you react and say, okay, look, this is exactly what we were saying. So we have to do exactly what the natural psychology or the natural reaction could be. This is why we should be more spiritual and less emotional. So it's less emotional will be reactive. Spiritual will say, okay, let us come back to the center, come with our things, and then come with, and this is where the consequences are, which kind of education, which kind of discourse in our mosques. Sometimes in our mosque we still listen to us versus them. They are like this, we are like this, and we are nurturing this sense of there is a barrier, there is this is not really your society. And then out of this we have a superficial unity, which is as a consequence, it's important, is something that we are facing within the Muslim communities and in the West. The Western Muslims are facing something which is very deep. We need to deal with something which has to do with internal racism, divisions. And the first one that we can see now with what is happening in Syria is the divide between Sunni and Shia. This is one. The second is between classes and between colors. African Americans, if you look at the great majority of the Muslim communities, there is a divide. You have African Americans on one side and immigrant Muslims on the other. And very often it also has to do with money, is the social status. It has to do with a situation within the society that we are avoiding talking about this. So we are all Muslims against, but when it comes to the constructive discussion within, we are avoiding this because it's painful. It's very painful. Islam is against racism, but many Muslims are racists. Like many Americans. We have to face it. We have to face the reality. Many Americans are facing this. Many Muslims are facing. We have to deal with our own things. So one of the main challenges is to stop this protective mode, being on the defensive, being assertive and confident. This is what I was, one of the C's that I was mentioning in what I believe, self-confidence as being who you are, and then to start having this dialogue and constructive dialogue within, and to be visible in the society, not to segregate yourself. At the end of the day, anyone, and it's something that I keep on repeating and get it right from the beginning, the success of integration is to stop talking about integration, is say, I'm at home here, and the second step is contribution. What you give to your society will be instrumental in helping you to feel better where you are and to give the better of who you are to this society. Thank you.